This is going to be just a tough realization that the financial advisory industry is going to have to get through and overcome and innovate through, is that, they're going to have to come up with ways to generate revenue for your firm aside from just charging on AUM. It's going to be more of, I need to be proactive in an advisory capacity, and I need to help them accomplish and diversify risks that their, strictly custodial portfolio is not quite accomplishing from a geopolitical perspective. For those who look at it with the right lens and say, this is actually an opportunity, they're going to be able to differentiate themselves and thrive and win over business that the legacy advisors who aren't willing to adapt and evolve and change are going to wish they had been able to keep.
Bitcoin is a currency on the internet.
If you don't trust any other currency, this is where you go.
It's going to outperform everything.
Bitcoin could eventually be worthless.
Every day is a good day to buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin reached its highest price to date.
Bitcoin hitting a new high. It really has reached escape velocity.
There is no second best.
Who cares about Bitcoin?
It's the only secure database that's ever been invented.
Antisocial.
Bitcoin is the real deal.
Stupid.
Everything is bullish for Bitcoin.
Immoral.
It's going up forever, Laura.
Fix the money. Fix the world.
WhiteOak is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Basilic LLC. Joining us as a CPA, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Trusted CPA or other affiliated firms. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as a recommendation appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice.
Welcome to Bitcoin for Financial Services Media, the podcast where sound money meets professional services. We explore how to build a financial services industry within the principles, values, and ethos of Bitcoin. Today, we're joined by Zach Wischler, Director of Sales at Casa. We'll be discussing how they are building for the future of Bitcoin financial services. Let's get started. Welcome back to Bitcoin for Financial Services Media. Jordan, great to see you. Bummed I missed the last episode. It's good to be back. We're joined by Zach, Director of Sales at Casa. Good friend of the pod, good friend of mine, good friend of the space. So we're honored to have you, Zach.
Thanks, Wyatt. Glad to be here. Happy Friday to you guys. And yeah, it's cool to see how I think you said Bitcoin for Financial Services Media. It's growing beyond.
It's growing, man.
Beyond the summit, man. You guys are building a brand. It's really cool to see it come together so quickly.
I have to give Jordan credit for that. I was just thinking like a small little ant. He's like, no, dude, we got something here. Like, let's do it big. And I was like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm scared. And then he's like, stop being almost four family-friendly podcast here. But anyway, Zach, why don't you give us a little intro on yourself?
Yeah, my name's Zach, Director of Sales at Casa. I've been here almost 5 years. Former financial advisor, so it's always fun to be on that side of the table in this conversation. Got the orange pill somewhere in the late 2010s, early 2020, and really just kind of dove in pretty deep. Left the financial planning industry, was working on sitting for the CFP exam and all of that, and just kind of saw the writing that with the 2020 bifurcation of all the money printing that Bitcoin was going to be the future, and kind of felt like a fork in the road moment where it's I'm either going to double down in financial planning or I'm going to go into Bitcoin. And little did I know how much it would come back around. And be doing a podcast about financial planning, so feels very familiar, but also very different. So hardcore advocate of self-custody and sovereignty. And I think some of those same things that attracted me to financial planning and the sort of liberty or sovereignty or financial independence, maybe is probably the better word in this context, that attracted me to financial planning in the first place is also what brings me to Bitcoin and the self-custody aspect through Casa. Also writing a book, The Bitcoin Tao, coming out in February. So depending on when this comes out, very soon. Bitcoin Magazine Books is our publisher. And
how do you spell the second word, by the way?
Tao, T-A-O. So it's 81 verses based on the inspiration of the Tao Te Ching. It's like an old Chinese wisdom book. And wrote each verse for kind of like reapplying the wisdom or rewriting it for Bitcoin. So it's not a education book. It's not really something you read to learn, but I hope you learn something. It's more of a culture book, and I hope will stand the test of time over the years as Bitcoin evolves and just becomes money. So
Love it, man. Well, we'll make sure to link that. Is it so it'll be available through the Bitcoin Magazine website?
yeah, for pre-order, probably next month or so. And there'll be some limited edition hardcover leather-bound collector's edition copies. That's a library edition with a cover, gold foil, the whole deal. The publisher of Bitcoin Magazine books has been great to work with. And we'll have like a cheaper paperback version for those who just want to, have a copy on their shelf or gift it out. But yeah, Bitcoin all day, every day. That's my life. Helped co-found the space with Wyatt and some of the other gents in Denver. And yeah, man, it's
And you played a big role in our summit. So shout out to that. You're a jack of all trades because you stepped up and did all the sound and all the recording. And honestly, that was a huge help to us. So thank you for doing that.
my pleasure. It was fun. And it's nice to be on the other side of the AV recording and just like show up and join. Have to plan
Yeah, we could have used your help, but obviously, yeah, behind the scenes, we were each on the wrong side of the link for the show for 10 minutes. But we're not professional podcasters. At the end of the day, we're all financial service guys, and just we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts, to really bring everybody else up to speed. So we'll give you more background, Zach, of like, okay, so you went to college for, I guess, finance, and then you worked in TradFi, were you kind of on like a CFP type of route, or what was that looking like for you?
Yeah, studied econ.
Okay.
And, graduated the econ degree. First job out of college was at Merrill Lynch, and I was like a asset acquisition specialist, basically. So my job was to cold call and get people to give us their money. It was hard when you're like 21. But always kind of been grinding in the sales side and still run sales today. But yeah, basically like saw the mutual fund world coming to an end as soon as I got into it. And, people coming and buying us Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And I was like, where's that Chick-fil-A coming from? Oh, from the advisor's expense ratio fees that they're putting clients' funds in. And a couple of years later, moved to Denver and joined Personal Capital. And that was much more of like a tech forward company and did financial planning from a lot more quantitative and less like rub elbows type of technique. So that was really cool and kind of brought me into the digital world for financial planning. And that is where I really got into Bitcoin and started meeting people who were mentioning this sort of forward thinking in the financial planning world. And from there, like I said, caught the Bitcoin bug, and it was all downhill or uphill from there, depending on which time when you listen to this and what your perspective is. But yeah, the financial planning side was always just like very interesting to me, because I was like, how do some people have the ability to like go on vacations all the time and do this, and how do other people not? And something that stuck with me early on in college was Chris Martinson's video about exponential growth and compounding. And, I think Warren Buffett says like compound interest is like the 8th wonder of the world. And I don't know, for some reason that's really stuck with me. And so I started very young thinking like, the things that I do now will have an outsized payoff later if I have that discipline to do it now. And of course, the Bitcoiner's low time preference mentality, fits in that like a glove. And also the idea of having true control over your money in a way that even having like traditional financial assets that are held at custodians just doesn't offer. Teeter-tottering on like conspiracy theory versus just like, actual planning. But, sovereignty is something that's like, we're only, you never know like how much you really take it for granted, and having that lever to pull is just a nice thing to know that exists and know you have that ability versus having no recourse. So the true sovereignty aspect of Bitcoin is really appealing to me, and I think has a place in people's portfolios. Though I don't give financial advice anymore, there is something to be said about money that's cannot be controlled, or that you don't have to ask for permission to use. And I think in an ever-growing AI digital world where everything's automated and constantly monitored, that it's only going to become more of a valuable part of Bitcoin. And yeah, so that's kind of my soapbox, and what I hope people take away is, Bitcoin's here to stay, and it's a tool for freedom, not just inflation protection. And it's a tool for many, many people around the world.
Yeah, totally. I think that's beautifully said. One thing I want to circle back on, Zach, that you mentioned in the intro is when you were still working in TradFi and you were thinking about making the leap to, Bitcoin, at that time, did you really kind of see it as like this bifurcation where there's going to be two teams? There's going to be Team Bitcoin, Team TradFi. Those two worlds aren't really going to merge or work together?
No, I think I mean, you got to remember, like, my perspective again has changed as I've been in Bitcoin. So it's hard to put myself exactly in where I would have been back in, call it 2017, 2018, when I first started learning about it. But I definitely didn't. I was a skeptic about the Bitcoin ETFs. I didn't think they were going to happen. When it did, it started really working on changing my mind. I now see it clearly why it exists, and is not, that writing was on the wall and is going in further that direction. But the financialization of Bitcoin, if you will, is certainly a momentum that's not going to be stopped and probably only growing. And then also there's a lot of, rhetoric around from, OGs or people who've been around a while that says, like, Bitcoin's going to be used by everyone, by banks, the people you like, the people you don't like, criminals, good people. It's literally a money that's used for everyone. That's the value of it. I didn't quite see, and I think what has surprised me over the last few years is that how much the aspect of self-custody has been minimized, and how, like, swept under the rug it's just been like, yeah, it's not that important. And it's because of the ETFs, right? And it almost feels like we're overdue for that lesson again. Every couple of years the exchanges have, like, collapsed or been caught up in a waterfall of, fraud or whatever. I mean, maybe this time is different, but those are dangerous words. So I'm surprised at how the sovereignty aspect has kind of fallen by the wayside on a lot of people, but the inflation protection aspect is still like nobody's like peer-to-peer permissionless cash. Everyone's like infinity over 21 million, right? And those to me they're both value props that Bitcoin offers, but they're different ones, and you only get certain ones with certain types of custody. So interesting to me how much they've melded. Part of what I end the Bitcoin Tao with in the last few verses is talking about how, Bitcoin will become what it's going to be and not what you think it should be. And that also those things, that definition itself will change. And so it's been a humbling process to say, oh, I know how Bitcoin is going to be in 10, 20 years, and then have to reel it back in and say, you know what? I don't know what the world's going to be like in 6 months, much less 10 years from now. So it keeps us on our toes.
Well, how do you approach it? I mean, I even have a lot of calls with folks that, they're dipping their toe into mining, for example, and they're doing it through a hosted setup. And, a lot of them actually, surprisingly, are older folks. And I got, a lady comes to mind that I spoke with earlier this week. And it was just one of those things where I was like, man, I don't even know if I would recommend you go down this path, just because unless you're really, I don't know, you have someone helping you hand in hand, or you're just really technical yourself, you have that background. It's a hard thing for someone who's always relied upon a custodian, whether it's their bank or their financial institution, to hold their funds for them, to now say, okay, now you're going to take full self-custody, full sovereignty, and go like 0 to 1 overnight. I guess I'm curious, Zach, how is that? How do you think through, like, is it a specific type of person for how the tools are now that should be looking at this? Or are the tool sets easy enough that it's your thought that, hey, take responsibility, take how many ever hours you need to learn all of this, to just go full on the self-custody route?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are tiers of it. So I would say, like, mining is like all the way, like even like way beyond self-custody even. Like, there are other ways of accumulating Bitcoin that are much simpler, much more reliable. You'll probably also be more effective. So if you're not like, I would not really recommend mining to anyone. unless you are talking to the guys at Exergy and you're trying to heat your home.
Shout out Exergy.
Shout out to Exergy. So, I mean, there's a benefit to mining, but that's a whole new rabbit hole. Like, heat is a product, not a problem. But I mean, if your point is to get exposure to Bitcoin as an asset, mining is not the way I would suggest it. It's far more complicated than necessary. Like, you just trade your fiat on an exchange. Casa even offers like an OTC desk and a buy and sell. So like we can help you with that and it goes directly to your wallet, but like you don't need to go mine. So unless there's like a appreciations or like depreciation schedule that you're trying to take advantage of or some like tax thing that's maybe you would know more about, Jordan, than me, but like unless there's some kind of other driving force, if the point is just to get exposure, you're going to buy it on an exchange or you're going to mine it. That's really the only two ways to get it. So buying on exchange would be the preferred way, I'd say, for most. And then you need to withdraw to self-custody, which if you're holding real Bitcoin, you should have it in a way that you can't just like mess it up and lose it tomorrow. Otherwise, the whole point of holding real Bitcoin is gone. And that's really what Casa, our company, focuses on. I mean, we're a neutral institution for neutral money, right? And so it's only neutral so much as that you actually have access to that money, though. If you lose it or you get cut off, I mean, there's no more value prop to that real Bitcoin. So I think for most people, if you're going to get exposure to Bitcoin, you're going to buy the real thing and not the ETF, then you definitely need to consider self-custody. And most oftentimes, when you're considering self-custody, if it's some meaningful amount of money, you don't want to put it all at black, right? So you don't want to have a single point of failure with just a ledger or treasure sitting in your home. My favorite like word anecdote is like, oh yeah, I got more money in this flash drive than the whole house is worth. And it's like, if that is you, we should talk. Like if you have more money in the ledger in your home than the home is worth, we need to talk. We can solve your problem for a fraction of your homeowner's insurance monthly costs, more than likely. So, yeah, I mean, it's just there are better ways to do it. And when you look at like self-custody too, we're just like at Casa, we're just recreating the institutional security model for the individual. So companies that hold 1,000 Bitcoin or MicroStrategy they don't hold their own Bitcoin, so they're a bad example. But let's say, if you're holding 600,000 Bitcoin, you're not going to hold that on a hot wallet, and you're certainly not going to hold that in a single key. There's going to be layers of redundancy and protection built in. And that's the same approach that we do. And it's really not all that different than the whole diversification strategy that you apply in financial planning. It's that you don't bet your entire portfolio on one stock. You don't bet it on one sector. You maybe don't bet it on one size or style box either, right? Or even one asset class. And so there are this concept of redundancy and caution. Security by diversification is a principle that should resonate with financial advisors. And I think where I hope our industry evolves to is a place where financial advisors, because this is often, I'm just, from talking with Wyatt, and it's like, clients like look at Bitcoin in different ways. So they have different levels of education about it, why they should hold it, what it's for, what they can do with it, how likely they'll lose it, but from an advisor's perspective, it's like, well, look, maybe it's like, already hard enough getting my clients to say, yes, let's put 5% of our long-term holdings in Bitcoin. And it's like, cool. And we're going to self-custody in this flash drive in your house where, and it's like, wait, what? But I think kind of just like redefining the narrative that it's actually that there's a benefit to that. And that's the true money that has not just a inflation hedge, but a geopolitical hedge. And in the world of uncertainty we're going into with infinite money and question marks around lots of things, I think having that, go bag, or, it sounds kind of crazy, but truly, like, it is a tail risk insurance for an individual in a way that there is not quite the same delivery in anything sitting in your Schwab account. Like, does not matter what custodial product you're holding, because the custodian itself would be a part of that systemic failure. So yeah, I think Bitcoin's going to continue to evolve, and how people use it and hold it is going to continue to change. So we're here to help, and we were here to demystify this stuff, just like a financial planner would give you actually you can retire. Like, you can withdraw 4% a year, and you can, or give you strategies. It doesn't have to be this big black box of unknown. And, we have support to help with that too. So, anyway, Bitcoin's a very cool, different thing to lots of different people. And it's also not a stagnant thing either. Although the 21 million part, that better stay.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Your wealth deserves intention. Basilic Financial is a Bitcoin-focused wealth management firm built to help our clients find balance between money and meaning. We integrate sound money strategies across 4 distinct personalized services: financial planning, individual wealth management, retirement services for SMBs, and Bitcoin financial services. Your prosperity, your purpose, intentionally guided at Basilic Financial. Visit our website at basilic.io to schedule a free consultation. Well, I think it's such a good point, Zach, because one of the things, self-custody is something we take very seriously, at Basilic, and something, we've talked about a lot. And I'm happy you brought up the point that we are in uncertain geopolitical times. Just listened to Tucker the other day, and he had, this whole monologue about, American empire, and if power gets consolidated into the executive branch, you're literally flip-flopping back and forth every 4 years, like what type of regime you could be, living in. And, we even saw during the last regime and the Elizabeth Warren war on terror on, crypto. Yeah, okay, an ETF may be a decent stopgap or somewhat of a starting point, but you really do leave yourself exposed to a lot of things you don't need to be exposed to because you're a Bitcoiner, and it allows you to take full control of your wealth. And I just don't think people are talking about that enough, specifically in the financial services world. And I should have pressed them harder on this, but I was trying to be a nice guy. But my theory is that, the wealth management industry is slow to adopt Bitcoin because it threatens their business model. We had Gerard on, and he disagreed with me. We'll have to pick that back up, and I'll poke him in the ribs about it. Just because I think they want to add the ETF and continue charging their 1%. And it's so easy for them. And they really do fall short, I think, of their overall fiduciary duty about encouraging self-custody, which is why I'm super thankful for companies like Casa that allow these advisors to utilize the tools you guys have built to further help their clients. But I do just want to double click more on the ETF point. And do you think it's more of a net good or a net bad? I one of the arguments I don't personally like about it is just like helps get people off zero more. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess. But if it's a wrong way to get off zero, is it really a net good? And then the second part of that conversation is, do you think 10 years from now, we'll just be looking at the ETF as like a point in time? Like it captured so much attention for like 3 years, and then it, kind of devolved into, its own thing we don't really talk about anymore.
Yeah, it could. A couple things there. See if I can remember them all. So, I think the first thing, like when we're talking about advisors, and we at Casa provide that tech support, that sort of intermediary, bridging the gap for your clients. Where if the client is dead set, maybe the advisor's not going to convince their clients to hold self-custody or be so intentional about promoting it as you would. And part of what I think will help differentiate your firm. But the reality is that there are going to still be some clients who are insistent on self-custody for whatever reason. Just like you've got clients who are like, I'm holding the gold ETF. I don't care what you say. And they're feeling good right now, right? They finally got their opportunity, time in the sun. So I think for clients who want to hold self-custody, who their mind is made up for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, that they want to hold self-custody, we can be an advisor to you as an advisor, where you're handling the financial side of the things, but we're helping you bridge the gap. We're not Coinbase's support in India, like that. You're just like, how do we do this? We have a private client advisor that you work with and that can help you bridge the gap between the financial planning goals that you're trying to do and the security considerations that need to be taken into account. So I think, and we also don't KYC our customers unless you're doing like buy and sell. So we can have a higher touch level of privacy preserving support there too. So I think that's something that just like, it's not even like, you don't have to go at it alone, whether you're a client or an advisor who is helping you on behalf or is helping your client on their behalf. So I think that is going to be one area where we just need to continue to double down and like make sure that we're promoting that, hey, self-custody is not that hard if you do it right. And it is important. And it's looking at that like net benefit of, I think once you realize that you could wake up one morning and they could have a hard fork that BlackRock doesn't honor, or like there's just things that can happen that are controllables, but not if you don't do it right or do it in a certain way. They're controllable risks that you could mitigate. So self-custody is going to be the gold standard, I think, forever. So like on the point about like 10 years from now and the ETF, I think the ETF's here to stay. I also think that, I'm not going to die on the hill of trying to get everybody out of the ETF and into self-custody. Something I've had to like humbly learn is that self-custody is not for everyone, because personal responsibility as a concept is not for everyone. Some people don't want to be responsible for themselves. Maybe they got a drug problem or whatever. And like, maybe they're in hospice care. And so like, they shouldn't be like, that's not a good situation to be self-custodying where you might have critical information lost. So we actually have inheritance. We help people plan for that stuff. But, I think where we're going to find our value in serving advisors is both that advisory capacity with tech support and security considerations that sort of bridge the gap between the legacy financial world, and also just having tools and infrastructure to help advisors grow their practice and differentiate it. So making sure that, if you, like, I think you do some of this already, right? Where you may hold keys on behalf of clients. And this is actually a whole new different line of business. So the days of charging 1% and then charging another 25 bips on top with the ETF, I mean, like you said, you nailed it, Wyatt. Sure, some people are going to probably ride that out as long as they can to the end of their career and then retire off in the sunset. But for advisors who are looking to truly differentiate themselves and grow and not just kind of do what the old ways have been doing and subsist, yeah, I think there's going to be an opportunity, but also a requirement for people to change and evolve their business practices. So the days of selling A-share mutual funds are pretty much over. The days of, charging 1% and just putting people in a client portfolio of ETFs are probably also being compressed from a fee perspective. So I think there's still value in that. And when you serve as an advisor, whether it's cash flow planning or strategic tax planning or estate planning, and we have an estate advisor or estate planner who does this with their clients, where he serves as like a trustee or in this role where he's holding a key or perhaps multiple keys, but not the full custody, only, a minority of the total number, and can help work with the heirs to help distribute the assets if something ever happens to the grantor. And so the idea of like, hey, Casa has a case study on this. I'll have to send it over to you guys. The idea that you have to give up your custody to a custodian to satisfy the tests of giving up custody for an irrevocable trust isn't necessarily true, where because Bitcoin's a bearer asset, there are certain unique properties that it has and requirements that are different than something that's held as a title, not a custodian. And so when you think about if Bitcoin's just held like in a revocable trust or something, it's basically just in your own name, right? But when you start getting into the tax and asset preservation or asset tax strategy and asset protection strategies of irrevocable trusts, you can't hold it anymore. And this is where something like a collaborative custody partner can make sure that you don't hold it, but that you didn't just give it to the guys who want to just package it into the ETF and fractionalize it to all hell. So there are ways to keep it within the custody of the family and meet both the security goals and the legal requirements that sometimes kind of feel like they're, juxtaposing or at odds with one another. So lots of things that are going to evolve within the landscape. And yeah, man, it's I can't imagine being in any other industry anymore. But like I said earlier, it's funny to like, I've come full circle. It's just like without all the letters in the name, I'm still basically doing financial services.
Yeah.
Jordan, weren't you just chirping Brian Armstrong on X about his customer support?
Well, I was just saying that they leaked my email and my phone number, and I get texts every day and emails of like, we saw a new login. Was that you or whatever? And so that's kind of, and I was at one of the Naples, Florida meetup 2 nights ago, and there was a lady who, if I had to guess, she was probably like in her mid 50s, that she was like, I hold all my stuff on Coinbase, and it was a really good opportunity to, try to talk as a group on, why that's not a good this is not a good thing to do for a host of reasons, whether it's personal information or risk that, Coinbase is a honeypot, that potentially they don't have all the Bitcoin they say they do, all those kinds of things. So it's definitely, it's funny because, I think we're at the point now where enough people are like, oh yeah, I've heard enough about it. It seems like it's legit, because people on CNBC say so, Larry Fink says so, even maybe my advisor says so. But I'm most curious to see, how do we shift the incentive structure specifically for the advisor that is still just on the AUM? I don't think if they're just looking at their costs and their team, that they've got to meet payroll and they've got budgets based off of this AUM model. I'm curious, Zach, I guess your thoughts on, okay, someone says, hey, I want to get into Bitcoin. And the advisor says, hey, great, we've got a partner at Casa, they can help us with that. And the client's like, okay, cool, I want to move $500,000 out of my portfolio. And they just see that leave their coffers all of a sudden, and now they've got to reallocate their budget. I guess, is there any thoughts there on a nice transition for an advisor, so that we're not just stripping them of all this revenue? Obviously their role shifts as more of a planner, but it probably needs to from a fiduciary duty, so that they're not just saying, hey, stay in this position because it really benefits us as a firm, even though it's not the best thing for you to do for you and your family long term.
Nailed it. That's exactly why the fiduciary standard exists, because you're required by law to do what's in the best interest of the client. So anyone who holds themselves out as a fiduciary and is intentionally, vehemently, against self-custody and pro ETF, I would say, debatable, case by case basis on each client. Again, if they're 90 years old, maybe the ETF is the way they should get exposure. But generally speaking, like the compounding effect of those fees is not in the best interest of the client long term when they're percentages like that, and especially when they're also packaged in on top of the already built-in expense ratio that the ETF holds and then the advisor. So I think that this is going to be just a tough realization that the financial advisory industry is going to have to get through and overcome and innovate through, is that, they're going to have to come up with ways to generate revenue for your firm aside from just charging on AUM. Why it's a great example of how you can actually do this, right? Differentiating yourself, not using this as my half of my revenue is gone because I'm just collecting, 1% pass and go and passive ETF holdings, not really doing anything, but auto rebalancing based on an AI, that's doing it. So it's going to be more of, I need to be proactive in an advisory capacity, and I need to help them accomplish and diversify risks that their, strictly custodial portfolio is not quite accomplishing from a geopolitical perspective. And, you can charge on that. I mean, like the estate planner that we work with at Casa, I mean, he's built his whole practice. Like when we first met many years ago, he was a estate planning attorney and CPA, but I mean, over the years, he's now basically, his whole business is now very sophisticated multi-LLC trust estate planning for ultra high net worth Bitcoiners. And he's built an entire specialization and niche brand around that. Paul Nyland and Associates, I'll give him a shout out because
nice. I'm speaking with Paul, I think, on Monday. So that's good to know.
Oh yeah, he's great.
This is a quick intro. So,
I mean, I think he's a great case study of where, for those who look at it with the right lens and say, this is actually an opportunity, they're going to be able to differentiate themselves and thrive and win over business that the legacy advisors who aren't willing to adapt and evolve and change are going to wish they had been able to keep.
If you're a financial professional working with Bitcoin, you know the pain of messy CSVs, broken cost basis, and accounting tools that were never built for this asset. Bitmint fixes that. Bitmint is the Bitcoin native accounting platform built for CPAs, bookkeepers, advisors, miners, and serious Bitcoin investors. You get clean Bitcoin bank statements, reliable cost basis tracking, full reporting, and fiat integration through Plaid. No crypto talk, no workarounds, just proper accounting for the hardest money on earth. Create a free account or book a demo at bitmint.co today.
Yeah. I mean, it also might just be a marketing component to go straight to the investors themselves, because even in our industry, right, in tax, clients know exactly how much they pay our firm every year because they have to pay invoices, right? Whereas with the financial advisor, the AUM model, if you ask 10 people, how much do you pay your financial advisor each year? What's the dollar amount?
Right.
I would say 9 out of 10 do not know what that amount is.
Well, you won't know until the 31st, because you can't. So yeah. Totally. It's
So if you bring that up though, if you're like, no, let's look, and I'm sure Wyatt's done this with clients to say, no, let's look at the last statement that shows it. And, if that's a big number, like say that's a 6-figure number for a really high net worth person. And you're like, okay, well, what are all of the benefits that you're getting out of that? Versus if you held out in self-custody, at least the assets you're able to, and we'll see. I'd be curious maybe to get your thoughts on all this tokenization hype that's been making its way through the CNBC talking heads. But even if you step back and you're like, okay, you're going to be able to potentially hold your own keys for your Apple stock, maybe, I don't know. In that world, that is really, okay, now it's not just Bitcoin that you could hold in self-custody. You could hold a whole lot of stuff in self-custody. And the financial advisor then is forced. There's no way around it because it's not just this Bitcoin piece.
tokenization is interesting. I mean, with physical assets, at least there's the Oracle problem. It's like tokenize a house burns down. How's the blockchain know the house burned down? With digital assets like equity, or I guess those are somewhere in between. I don't know. I mean, I guess I just ask myself, like, why? Like, custodial for that stuff works perfectly fine and there's no material gain. Like, I'm a shareholder on the record books of Apple's company. So, like, it's not custody to begin with, right? It's not money. It's a on record ownership of the company. But so anyway, I don't see the same value there, but I do see the liquidity value and 24/7 trading ability, no more market hours. They've already started to move that way with like some after hours trading. It's getting large. Those getting larger and larger. I remember it was just like 2 hours a day when I started working as a financial advisor, and now they trade on Saturdays until 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's some liquidity benefits and some efficiency that can be found from that liquidity. Not so much on the other end though. But yeah, I think advisors are going to just have to evolve, and, Casa is going to be able to serve the needs kind of in between, because we aren't a custodian. We are a partner, right? And I think Wise got a really good job of, like I was saying, like growing, and you're just going to have to evolve your business. It reminds me of what I keep saying to my wife about, none of us are going to have jobs in 3 years. Like, I work in sales, right? So I was like, we're all unemployed in 3 years. And she's like, don't tell me that. But I like say it in jest, but I'm also saying it somewhat truthfully in that, the industries, all service-based industries, are going to change so radically with AI when we get to a level where the outputs are context aware, and they really are solid. And so, you can either look at that as like a very dystopian future that say we're all unemployed. They're going to print $2 quadrillion, which they are going to do that, to give everyone universal basic income, but it won't be very basic and it won't be what you need. So you better hold Bitcoin to absorb that. But at the same time, there's going to be opportunities, like I vibe coded a contract maker app for Casa in an evening. And now anytime I want to build a contract, I can just like modularly add certain sections and upload company logos into this in probably about an hour. And it saves me hours of work in the future that's much more manual, much more the worst part of my work that I do. Here we go again. I got to like edit a contract line by line. So I think there are opportunities, just in the same way that there are going to be threats to the current way of doing things. And that's just straight out of the Bitcoin Tao. The change is the only constant. So, or the Tao Te Ching itself.
Okay, so I want to maybe pivot over to Casa because I want to maybe spend the rest of our time really getting into the weeds because, one of the main reasons for the summit in person and this show is advisors who are wanting to be on the cutting edge of just where everything's going. How, where do I send my clients? Who's a trusted partner? I want to make sure I'm not sending to an FTX or someone like a company like that. So maybe walk us through. We can start maybe on individuals, high net worth individuals, how that would work. And then I know I saw on the site as well, there you guys have support for small business owners as well for how they can manage their treasuries. So I want to get into all that.
Yeah. And just to add on top of that too, Zach, like any advisor specific tools you guys have built or thought about building that you think will service the industry moving forward?
Yeah. Great question. So, Casa is I guess on a high level was a Swiss bank for Bitcoiners. We are more technically a collaborative custody service that uses multi-sig wallets and a world-class advisory team to help individuals, small businesses, even large institutions as an infrastructure on the back end accomplish self-custody in a way that they feel confident in. So, how we do that in each way is different, but also has a very similar foundation. So the core concepts are good UX, good design. It empowers people to know they're doing the right thing, not making mistakes along the way. Complement that with client services. So live human advisor like myself to make sure that as questions come up or oh shit moments come up that you don't hit the big red button without checking with us. And then the multi-sig infrastructure gives you the ability to manage Bitcoin like a human because humans make mistakes, regrettably. And the same is true in navigating changes. So even if you don't make a mistake, I promise you that your plan will change over time, whether it's your security plan, your financial plan, your life plan, your career plan, maybe all the above. It's all going to change. And the same is true with businesses too. So, maybe you have some change in leadership, you have some change in executive team, or perhaps an employee passes away suddenly. And so there are certain flexibilities that have to be in place to allow an individual that's holding a high net worth value in Bitcoin or companies of any size to manage those changes, right? And accommodate for whatever life throws at them. So in our most basic sense, we use a 2 of 3 multi-sig wallet. This means there's 3 total keys. Think of it like a keyhole, a key. There's 1 lock, 3 keyholes, right? And if you put 2 keys in their corresponding matching keyholes, you open that lock and there is the Bitcoin there behind it. That's great if you have like just a little bit of Bitcoin, or maybe even like, 10, 20,000. But when you start to get up into the hundreds of thousands, millions, or tens of millions, hundreds of millions, you need a little bit more robust redundancy. And with that also comes a lot more configuration with how you can set it up. So, on the far end, just to contrast, we have clients who are multinational and have houses in different places all over the world. Must be nice. And in that, they have, hardware keys distributed across the planet. So, they're not diversifying against asteroid risk. Told them to, but they also have given themselves sovereignty in a way that many, many, many people on Earth, even the world's elite, maybe just don't have. And so, you can construct a plan like this in a way that you just can't do with a single point of failure or a single key. And so you can get sophisticated with this where you can set, maker checker permissions where certain people can do things in the enterprise and then only others can approve it, and these operational flows that are very familiar in standard business, but very unique or different in Bitcoin because it's a new industry, it's nascent, and the needs for Bitcoin companies are being found out newly every day, right? It's like, oh, we need to do that. Okay, well, let's solve that with software. So we have historically, we protect a lot of Bitcoin, over $10 billion. And across that is a wide variety of, from somebody with $500 in Bitcoin to, very, very large institutions with much, much larger balances. And, our goal is to, again, give you confidence along each part of that, whether you're new in Bitcoin and you're just getting started, or whether you're an enterprise or some kind of, even larger institution that has very custom requirements from a security, compliance, management, operations, secrecy, like the whole gamut. So, just depending on where you are, I think we can meet you typically where you're at. The one exception is that, if self-custody is not right for you, then our product is not right for you, because we aren't a custodian. And I'm very proud of that, because I think there's plenty of custodians. And we offer infrastructure for custodians to accomplish that custody. So if you are a custodian, we can help you build, rather than handing all the coins over to Coinbase or Galaxy or single point of failure, where you hold your custody on behalf. We can help you accomplish that with our infrastructure and manage that internally in your company, rather than handing it over to an external custodian. So there's a lot of potential with primitives and building blocks. And that's what's so cool about this industry, is that it's open source and a lot of it. And we're able to kind of build on each other's work and see how those composable blocks come together over time. So curious to see like how things are going to evolve. And something I'll mention too is just like, having been at Casa half a decade at this point, it's interesting to see how the conversations have changed from the pre-ETF days, where, our biggest competition was, other wallet providers. That was like every conversation was like this wallet versus this wallet, because there was no alternative. Now it's not that. 8 out of 10 times, especially those in the, I'd call it high net worth or ultra high net worth cohort of wealth, it's custody or ETF. Those are the alternatives. Casa is often looked at as I want to hold my own keys. I've heard not your keys, not your coins over the years, but I just don't feel confident in a way that it's worth it, right? Like I can just plug it into Schwab or plug it into whatever brokerage I've got, or my financial advisor can buy the ETF in their platform. And I'm not an ETF doomer. Like I said, I think it exists and it's right for some people, and it's also right for some holding timeframes too. But it's certainly not the same thing. And I think for those who want that, or who recognize the value in that real Bitcoin that you can't afford to lose through a mistake or changing times or situations, and that's Casa can be a partner there for, whether it's an individual, an institution, a trust, an advisor to one of those various types of entities too. So,
yeah. And then talk me through, because I think another big value prop for you all from an advisor standpoint is the inheritance plan. And I know that comes up all of the time, especially if someone's like, hey, I want to take full self-custody, but, if I die, if me and my wife both die tragically together, what does that look like? And I think you all have solved that problem very well. And so that's a huge value prop for individuals and companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. The coolest thing about our inheritance is that it doesn't use death certificates. It uses time delays and prior, consent to keys. So you essentially, and what that means is that you can do it anywhere in the world with any type of relationship for a trustee or inheritor beneficiary. So as an example, simple, husband and wife delegate an adult child as their inheritance recipient. They share a minority number of the keys. So in, let's say, the 3 of 5 scenario, they would share 2 of the keys. So the child doesn't have access because they need 3. And Casa only holds 1 key, and so would not be able to move funds. And that's the whole goal of the inheritance, is we're not transferring the assets. The assets are yours. They're in your control. Casa can never touch them, never move them. We only hold 1 key ever. But what we can do is help collaboratively get to that majority threshold when the time is right. So with this situation where a husband and wife were to pass away, the assets go to the kids, there would be a 6-month waiting period where the child, through the recipient delegation, could essentially go in the app and say, request access to inheritance. And a 6-month series of notifications, emails, push notifications in the apps goes by, where If you don't respond to them as the account owner, after 6 months, assume it's valid. And this allows it to work without a death certificate anywhere in the world. But it doesn't give them access because you have to also have 3 keys, right? So when you enroll a person in inheritance, what we do is you share a QR code of your mobile key, and you can literally text it to them, export it. It's an encrypted QR code of one of the keys. And they'll have that, and they have it backed up to their iCloud or Google Drive when they import it. And then they sign a message with it. And it sounds complicated, but they literally scan the QR code and hit a button. So they can probably do that. And they get confetti when it's done. So you know, it's like I said, UX. But the goal is that basically you share everything they need from day one. But they don't have access, but they have everything they need to get access when the time is right. So you share a encrypted copy of one key and a physical copy of another, or the seed phrase of that. And then Casa steps in after that 6-month period and helps that beneficiary get the 3 keys. And what's cool about this is you didn't give them access early. So you didn't create a new problem by trying to solve one. And it's often what happens. It's like, well, I want to make sure my kids have access to the Bitcoin. So here's the Bitcoin. All of a sudden, now the kid is a point of failure. All of a sudden, now maybe they'll rug you if your relationships aren't good. But if from a security consideration, maybe you don't even want them to know how much Bitcoin you've got, if you've got a large amount, what they're going to inherit. So Casa allows you to do that. You can actually make sure that your heir has access to everything they need without knowing what they're going to inherit. They only see the balance after that 6-month period is elapsed and you haven't rejected it. And the same is true for succession planning as a business. So you can set up much more customizable delays and criteria where you have to have multiple people on a video call. Think about like inside job planning. But the goal is that, each type of entity or situation is going to require some sort of customization, but we're using the same principles of not your keys, not your coins. We don't need to know who you are, and minimal trust and maximum access to for you. So speaking of access, sovereign recovery, right? So we don't hold your Bitcoin. So even if Casa, the company, disappears, it's on the blockchain. We just built the lock on the blockchain for you and help you manage it, but that's not the only way to get it. So Casa uses BIP49 for wallet construction, and basically you can recreate it in any compatible wallet like Sparrow, Blue Wallet, there's Spectre, there's so many of them. And so even if our company or app goes out of business, there's nothing proprietary about our wallet structure. And we've taught you, potentially, if you're one of our higher tier support, that kind of service, we've actually taught you how to recreate it in case doomsday comes and we get disappeared or forced to do some sort of canary. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in a way that you just don't have when you're holding a custodial option. And it gives you confidence in a way that, I still worry about Bitcoin. I'm more worried about like the forks or quantum but I'm not worried about like messing up a seed phrase or like basic wallet construction. And for so many people, that's where they stop. And they get so timid because of that. And this is a very real risk. I've lost Bitcoin before. That's not why I'm here. So people stop there and they don't go any further, and they never see what this could actually solve for them in their portfolio and their financial life, and how it's going to come into play in the changing world of AI.
This episode is brought to you by Satoshi Pacioli, a full-service accounting and tax firm built for the Bitcoin economy. If you run a Bitcoin business, mine Bitcoin, or invest in it, you need advisors who actually understand how this industry works. Satoshi Pacioli handles bookkeeping, financial reporting, tax compliance, and strategic planning for Bitcoin-focused companies and individuals. They speak the language of Bitcoiners and help you stay compliant while building for the long term. To learn more or book a consultation, visit satoshipacioli.com.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Tip of the cap to you guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are SOC compliant now as well?
Yeah. I'd say my director of sales would be remiss for me not mentioning it, but that's supposed to be that's me. So yeah, we got our SOC 2 Type 2. We got a SOC 2 Type 1 and Type 2 last year. Most recently the Type 2, and kind of overkill. We don't even hold your funds, right? This is like this is something that your custodians do. And they do this because they hold your funds. So they have to have we don't even hold your funds. Like in theory, like whatever happens to our company or our key shouldn't affect your wallet. But we hold our company, because we are a security company, to the same standards that the custodians that actually hold your Bitcoin do. So a little bit of just like, humble brag in there. So
no, man, I think it's important, because like if I get a little jaded at Bitcoiners sometimes because they don't feel like you need to be like quote unquote like corporate. But you were just mentioning with some like your enterprise tools and stuff, where it's like we don't get to hyper Bitcoinization without large entities buying Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin, and they need these controls. Like this isn't something we should brush off as like TradFi or unimportant or lame or old or whatever. I love that you guys have taken that upon yourself because it's important and institutions need it. One of the questions I have that we've talked about privately, I think you have some really interesting thoughts on, is just the business model of custody solutions. And we were talking about kind of poo-pooing advisors charging AUM fees on Bitcoin. One of the things I have kind of a pet peeve gripe with is custody solutions charging AUM fees as well. And I think kind of their general parroting line is, well, as your value increases, we need to do more to secure your Bitcoin. I think that's kind of hogwash because, why wouldn't you take the same level of care to secure $100,000 worth of Bitcoin versus $1 million worth of Bitcoin? So just curious in your thoughts in general, kind of working in this, sub industry, how do you see that business model kind of being a flash in the pan and dying out? How do you feel like the business model of custody solutions evolves over time?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a firm opinion on this, and very Tao-esque. Maybe one should not have a firm opinion about much.
Lame. That's a lame opinion, but go ahead.
Thank you. We charge a flat fee for all our retail plans. The only thing we charge a percentage on is our enterprise tier. And that is on a case-by-case basis. So different pricing because it's a totally different set of requirements. But for our retail product, it's a flat fee. You could hold $1 trillion in Bitcoin or you can hold $5. It's just dependent on the tier of service and the vault tier that you unlock. So I think for most people, the flat fee model, and similar to what you may charge to be a key manager for one of your clients as a financial planner, it's like there's a certain level of time spent that we expect to do, and correspondingly, we know what we need to charge in order to make sure that we can deliver that and continue to operate as a company. I don't set pricing in sales so much, but there's a different set of needs at enterprise that are different, and actually, amazingly, because we are such a lean company, we still have less than 50 employees. We've been around almost 10 years. Because of that, we're able to price competitively, especially on the enterprise side, where companies that have these controls and customizations and compliance and all of these things, they're like, oh yeah, you're paying for that, buddy. And so I find that even when we're looking at a percentage basis, where you don't always see the same level a bloat, and still smaller companies like ours, and as a result that those savings pass on to the customer. So I think they're gonna exist, and it's a different way of thinking about it as well. But for most people who just want to get exposure, my talking point is hey, our private client, our most expensive retail plan is $10K. So if you have $4 million in the ETF, it's literally cheaper to have our private client plan and have real Bitcoin, and also have true self-custody with a 24/7 advisor that you can ask about how to set up a VPN or two-factor security key or anything else about security that can complement your financial planning side. So it's very easy for someone to run those numbers with a 25 bips, round trip fee for IBET. But again, that said, there are other benefits to IBET that, I won't lean on because that's not the soapbox I'm trying to make, point I'm trying to make. But I also want to be clear that 100% self-custody of all of your assets forever is not necessarily a sound financial plan, for the same reason that you don't buy and have your entire portfolio in one single stock or one asset.
Yeah, no, that's good. Zach, tell us anything. We just entered into the new year, 2026. Couple things, again, an advisor who's listening to this thinking, hey, I want to stow this away for when clients ask about this, so I've got a solution. Or I might want to go ahead and reach out and open up a dialogue with Casa, just so that when the time comes, I know who to talk to. How does an advisor kind of go about that? And then also, if there's anything they should be on the lookout for 2026, where Casa's kind of heading, anything that you can speak to on that front, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so our big focus this year is deepening our financial services for Bitcoiners and what we can do. We've been known for years to be the place where real serious hodlers hodl their Bitcoin. I pray one day that people will use their Bitcoin. Holding is using your Bitcoin, by the way. Let me set the record straight there. You are using your Bitcoin every second that it's protecting you from fiat inflation. Every second that it gives you permissionless peer-to-peer money.
I like that.
In self-custody only. But the reality is people don't make a lot of payments with it today. We've ran into that aspirational goals of the space where we have lots of things for sale for Bitcoin, but very few people want to spend their Bitcoin because it's going to go up. It's going to go up. So that will change. And I think there's new tools like Square that turning it on for everyone that has been really cool with the Bitcoin merchant community. So, looking forward, there'll be other uses for it. But, in the long run, I think people will use Bitcoin and spend it and do so in a way that promotes a Bitcoin circular economy instead of this hodl mentality. With that, you can't spend the ETF. So good luck buying coffee with the ETF to all you coffee Bitcoin buyers out there. I'd say for the roadmap. So again, financial services and really allowing people to unlock more of that value that they have and that they plan to continue to hodl. This ties in very well to the estate planning goals that a lot of our clients have, just being in that kind of upper echelon of net worth and tax planning that comes with that, estate planning that comes with that, security planning and inheritance. If you've got, $50 in Bitcoin, you're probably not planning a multi-generational wealth inheritance plan just yet. But if you got 500 Bitcoin and you think you're holding on to something worth holding on to, you certainly are going to be thinking beyond just your lifetime. And with that comes a whole new set of constraints, limitations, requirements, considerations. So helping people unlock through financial services like our OTC desk. From the enterprise side too, I think the infrastructure we are noticing that even your custodians today who are starting to get into Bitcoin maybe don't want to reinvent the wheel of how to custody digital assets, being that we've mastered that. I really see a lot of traction in the enterprise segment where we aren't just serving the retail customer as the software provider, but serving the institution who serves the retail customer as the back-end infrastructure play and allowing that company to manage the assets that they custody on behalf of users in a way that feels more intuitive and more secure than just recreating all of that in-house, So that's another area where I see our business growing quite a bit. And then, it's unfortunate that this is true, but I think a lot of it is going to just also be contingent on what the Bitcoin market price does. So we all got rug pulled last year with the bull market. Was that a bull market for ants? I don't know. I've never seen a bull market like that. It wasn't that bad, I guess, but we didn't make the 2, 3, 4x multiples that many were expecting. Shocker. Retail's always wrong. So this could be the bull market year or this could be the bear year. Only you can be the judge of that. I'll tell you in December. But I think a lot of that will also, just what our strategy will be. So those are our core, kind of what we're focusing on this year. But our core is to also be flexible, be ready to change. So,
that's awesome, man. Okay, so if anyone's curious where they go to find Casa, those services, and then if anyone wants to reach out to you individually, where can they find you on different social channels?
Yeah. So Casa has a couple different plans. Just go to casa.io, CASA. You can check out our individual and business plans. If you want to contact me, you can email me at Zach, Z-A-C-H, the only correct way to spell Zach, at team.casa. That was a look back to our pre-call notes.
I like that. Yes.
Or sales at team.casa. That might be easier to remember. You don't have to remember how to spell Zach. Sales at team.casa, no .com, at team.casa, bane of my existence, at team.casa domain. Someday we'll change it. But the web marketing website's butchering it, casa.io. That'll be the easiest way, casa.io. Personally, social media, BTC BAP, BTC BAP. Don't ask what it stands for. I don't remember. You'll also find me using my real name, Docs AF, on the upcoming Bitcoin Tau book. That'll be coming out in February for the paperback, and then the collector's edition, which Wyatt, thank you for pre-ordering. The hardcover will come out in June, and we'll be doing like some kind of event at the space for like a book signing or something. I'm sure we'll do something there. So yeah, follow me on social media. I'm pretty quiet on there these days. I just like to keep my opinions to myself. For better or for worse. Not everyone always agrees with you. And I've lived long enough to know that, that doesn't mean you have to change your opinion. You just keep it to yourself. So it's just like, just live on and keep calm, carry on. So but I will be more active on social media this year because I've got something to sell. So I got a book to promote, maybe a second book coming out. Who knows? Wyatt's working on a second book already. Bitcoiners, man.
Maybe. You could just do things.
You just do things, and, you only got so many trips around the sun on this earth unless you fuse with AI and some kind of upload thing. And that's a whole nother podcast we can talk about someday. Our next generation may have to grapple with that realization, but try to make every day a good one. And I'm just thankful to be here. And so as long as I'm healthy, I'm gonna keep doing what I love and building for the movement that I care about, making the world a better place. I know you guys are doing this, man. It's fun to do.
Sir. We're gonna win. So that's what I just heard right there. So
we're gonna win. It's gonna require some work.
Yes, absolutely.
It's worth fighting for. It has to be fought again and again.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Wyatt. Thanks for organizing this one kind of last second. So any closing words from your side, Wyatt?
No, man. Thanks so much for coming on, Zach. It's always great chat, and I think you have a ton of great insight to share with the industry. So appreciate you doing it on the BFFS media.
My pleasure, guys.
All right.
It's been great.
We'll leave it there. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Zach. Talk to you soon.
Have a great weekend, gents. Bye.
We appreciate you joining us. If you want to help build the future of Bitcoin and financial services, hit subscribe, leave a review, sign up for a newsletter, and share this with someone in your network who's integrating Bitcoin into their practice. The more professionals we reach, the stronger this ecosystem becomes, and our clients are better served. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, keep leading from the front.